This podcast is brought to you by Sandlot Partners.
Because I said, the truth is, I don't know what happens next. But I do know this, that finding our purpose is never a one-time event. Like, we do it over and over and over in our lives as we become the men and women that we were created to become.
So we're just going to jump in. I'm with my friend, Amy Antonelli. Got to know each other, 5 or 6 years ago?
Yeah.
Was it Emily Dean?
Yes.
She's kind of the connector of everybody.
She absolutely is. My life is magic because
it really
Emily
does
and Logan.
all go back to
Yes.
Emily. I was with Logan last week in Finland.
Oh, that doesn't surprise me a bit.
Yeah. And so met through Emily, and you knew Chelsea before you knew me. But your folks were my neighbors.
Yeah.
And so we've always kind of known your family, and I'm excited to dive in to your story because I know pieces of it. And there's the big piece that touches kind of almost everybody I know, which is the HXP piece, which is the business that you built. And I think you look back and kind of say, this is a lot of my legacy, because it's just so impactful to so many people. And it's youth, you know what I mean? Like, yeah. It's kind of magic when you think about, like, I've got the chance to go influence a large number of people at, like, the most influential point in their journey. And so I'm excited to, like, go into, like, how did that come about, and how, where did it start and where did it grow, and so all those things. And so anyway, thanks for coming on.
Oh, it's such a pleasure. I think that what you're doing with this podcast is remarkable. I find it so inspiring to listen to the kinds of people that you bring on. And I feel like their stories always kind of influence mine in really profound ways. So I feel
the exact same thing. We're actually just talking about kind of an edit that the team did on faith. And you were saying, I really like that one. I was like, I didn't even know that we did it.
Oh my gosh, it's so good. I mean, all of these remarkable people that you have conversations with, and then putting all of their little faith snippets together in, 1 or 2 episodes. Seriously, you walk out of there thinking, I cannot.
No, it fires me up. I need to go back. I need to go back and listen to it, because it's that for me is like core to kind of everything. You know what I mean? It's foundational. And I think the reason I'm curious with it is because I have so many friends of so many different faiths.
Yeah.
That faith is so central.
Yeah.
And it's fascinating to me. Like, it's fun for me to hear somebody both, that shares a similar, like, faith tradition that I do, but then also somebody it's not like a completely different one.
And watch the way God shows up in their lives. And
it's the same. And I think that's
and it inspires you.
It brings you together because you're like, this is the same.
Totally.
Like the fundamentals of this are the same and the foundations are the same.
Yeah. Well, I think that's what's so powerful about the compilation is that you hear it from so many different perspectives, but fundamentally it's people showing up in all the different ways saying, I could do this life alone, or I can choose to do it with God.
Yeah.
And when I choose to do it with God, it's way more amazing than I could have ever imagined.
So cool. And that's like got to be your life a lot.
Yeah, for me, that is fundamentally the reason for my existence.
But does it just charge you up? Like,
every day
to do that work? It's got to be like so mission driven and so purpose driven.
Oh my gosh. I feel like the luckiest girl in the universe. I really do. Everybody in our faith that we share, families are really central and really critical. And I'm such a big believer in families. And so for a while when I was younger and I wasn't married and I didn't have the chance to have children, there was a bit of a sort of, journey and trying to understand what my purpose is and why I was sent here, because I so believed when I was growing up that I was going to be a mother and that was going to be my first and foremost role. What is so cool is there's a leader in our faith named Neil A. Maxwell, and he used this phrase called a customized curriculum. And I love that idea because I really have come to believe that every single person has their own journey in coming to understand who God is for them and therefore how they show up in the world with God. And for me, was way different than I thought it was going to be when I was growing up, but it turned out to be way better.
So like
in the life I could have planned for myself.
There's so many places that I want to go with this.
Yeah.
Because your story is so unique, and it's that there's pieces of it that, I relate to, and there's pieces of it that I don't relate to at all.
Sure.
That are the opposite of my story. And so maybe let's start with HXP today.
All right.
Because what is HXP?
Yeah.
How many people do you serve? What's the mission?
Totally.
What's the organization?
I don't know if you want to get me started talking about this. It's hard
to
shut me up.
No, I'm fascinated.
No. So we are a humanitarian organization. We take teenagers ages 14 to 19 out all over the world to 68 global locations now.
68.
Yeah. And our mission is to serve people who lack access to healthcare and finance and education in ways that fundamentally make their lives better.
Yeah.
And that's kind of the outward mission. I mean, that's kind of why kids sign up to go on our trips.
Yep.
But the reality is HXP is about something more than that. And we're pretty unapologetic about it. Our true purpose for existence is to help every single teenager who comes on our trips to understand who they are and who they were created to become. And I think that there's just something so powerful about kind of this unique formula that frankly, I'd love to say that I studied it out, but really we stumbled upon it. It's a little bit of a digital detox. It's a little bit of trip leaders who are pretty close to the kids' age, so they model leadership. Kids can see themselves in their trip leaders. It's a little bit of traveling to a new place and seeing a perspective on the world that you haven't seen before. And it's a lot of seriously just grungy, hard work, blood, sweat, and tears in building a school or a nutrition center or a hospital where you see that the people around you are going to be able to benefit. And there's a love, I think, that comes when you serve like that that's just pretty hard to replicate in any other situation. And these kids come home different. I mean, it's 2 weeks and you wouldn't think that it would make that big of an impact, but 17 days of seeing yourself for who you really are, putting your phone down so you're not distracted by all of the ways that, the outside world tells you you're supposed to be, but really feeling like the version of yourself that you really like and you're excited about, they come home and that's the version of themselves that they chase. And so I think that's why people say HXP is so life-changing, because once you've experienced that version of yourself, everything else is just like a poor man's version. You want to be that person. And all of a sudden you're excited and greatness comes from that chase. And so, I mean, when I started 10 years ago, it was just under 1,000 people.
Crazy. It was only 10 years ago.
Yeah. And now this summer we'll have 8,000 kids going out. And it's just so remarkable because people like to talk about teenagers like they're so slouchy or they're so frustrating or they're so entitled. And my experience with 8,000 kids is that they are giving up a summer where they could literally be doing almost anything else in the world. And they're just choosing to put their phones down and they're choosing to go out there. And it's not just a cute little let's build a fence. I mean, they're on the work site from 9 to 4 o'clock every day, exhausted, but happier than they've ever been in their lives.
Wow.
And it's such a privilege.
So where was the start? Like, where was the genesis of the idea?
Yeah.
Hey, we should actually do this.
Yeah, it's a great story, actually. No, so it actually started 25 years ago. It was a couple who had a son, and they were living out on the East Coast, and they saw a lot of these Christian organizations that have mission trips and saw the impact that these mission trips had. And looked around in our faith, which is the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints, and didn't really see anything that was correlating. And so they just thought, well, I'll take our son back to Brazil where the father served his mission. And they did it. They spent the summer in Brazil building a home for street kids. And when they got back, their son was like a different person. It started actually because their son gave his father a list of cars that he would be willing to drive. And the father thought, like, I have failed at parenting. And so their names were the Binghams, and David Bingham was the son. He got back and He was just a different person. His entire focus had shifted from himself to how can I help other people? I find value in myself when I give. And so he decided to serve a mission and went to the Philippines on his mission. Really tragically, a few years after that, he passed away.
What?
Yeah. And it's a really profound thing to think. We call our kids builders, and it's a profound thing to think this started with one kid. It started with parents who loved their son and wanted to give him an opportunity to change, to give him a different perspective and to see himself in a different way. And it started, that one kid choosing to do that one thing is now 8,000 kids doing the same thing. And it's a remarkable thing to be able to.
No, it's incredible. So it starts 25 years ago.
Yeah.
Did they do it a second year, a third year? Was it kind of like...
They kind of did it off and on. They did that trip. David came home. His friends and family obviously saw the change in him, and so they wanted to do it. And so the Binghams took, I think, 2 groups out the next year.
Yeah.
And then really for the next 15 years, they did it kind of as a family-run organization. Yeah. I will say this. They started a few years before me to hire young people to run it for them.
Okay.
So they would pull actually kids out of Harvard that had just graduated. So really bright kids who were capable, but who were really young. And they would build it for a year or two until they were just exhausted. And then the next kid would come on. And so when they finally were ready to be done with it and to step out, they actually reached out to me blindly. They found me through our alumni database.
What?
Yeah. And they pitched it to me. And I was kind of in a place in my life where it was an unusual thing that I would have looked at something like that. But because of circumstances that had happened to me, I just thought, well, maybe. And so I offered to just consult for them for a little while to help build their organization. Yeah. And I think I was looking at the organization for maybe 2 weeks before I realized, wow, I think this thing could be something incredible.
Was it just like a feeling? Was it like something calling to you, or was it like...
No. My life has been really remarkable that way. When I feel like it's time to take the next step, it's been abundantly clear. I don't know why that happens, but it was just this, this little kind of cute little organization that I thought, wow, I think we can do something with this. And the Binghams were remarkable in that they don't have any sort of founder syndrome. They were just willing to hand it to me, and they've been incredible in terms of like answering the phone anytime I need to ask a question, and they're so bright. But they just said, here you go, do whatever you want with it. And so for the last 10 years, I've just been able to kind of run it the way that I feel led to run it.
Yeah.
And then I've been blessed with a million really smart people that have come in and helped us to do that.
So it went from like 15-year build to get it to this point to like exponential growth.
Yeah. So there was just under 1,000 when we came in. There was 3 people in the office, and I think we have 100, just over 100 employees now. And that's actually, I'll say this, really what we do shouldn't actually happen. Like there's no rational reason that HXP should be so successful. So I just credit that to our motto, which is there will be miracles. God helps us in so many ways.
So give me some examples on why would you say that?
Well, I just think that every little piece of the organization has been kind of come to us in ways that it may not have happened before. For example, I think when you typically come in to build a company after 15 years, there's a lot of fixing that has to happen.
Yeah.
It wasn't like that for me. Like the Binghams built a really solid foundation. And so my whole job when I walked in the door was to scale it. And that was obviously a huge challenge in and of itself, but there wasn't a lot of, fixing or rebuilding that had to happen at the beginning. And then second, I think, you talk about this all the time, but I think this generation of people are so purpose-driven. We're all looking for a reason to matter.
Yeah.
And whether that's, building hospitals or schools, or whether that's changing someone's life, that's how we fundamentally find value in ourselves. And so I think HXP came along at a time when, this sort of 20-something generation was looking for a reason to matter beyond just making money.
Yeah.
And so we were able to create a scenario where we have like a 10% acceptance rate for our trip leaders.
Yeah. So I was going to say, like, here's someone who has never had a kid do it.
Yeah.
And really don't know much about it other than have a lot of friends that have had kids doing it. So these are the things that I notice from the outside. I teach up at BYU.
Yeah.
And every single year in my entrepreneurship class, there's a percentage of kids that go out and are trip leaders.
Oh, that's so cool.
And they're all exceptional. Like the ones who make it are like really talented, really dynamic.
Yeah.
Like, and so you can tell, that screening process is pretty tight.
Yeah, it's intense.
And the people who do it, they really want to do it and they're capable of doing it, And so I think that's got to be the foundation is
Absolutely.
You start with exceptional facilitators that can go navigate crazy stuff in foreign countries. It's just life is happening, and got to be chaos every single year, all sorts of stuff that just you can't plan for that pops up.
Yeah.
And so that's one kind of external. The other one is I've got so many friends that have had kids that I don't want to say they're wayward, but they're searching and completely addicted to phones, addicted to just life as a teenager. And we have teenagers that are kind of in that mix where, and I've been that teenager where nothing really mattered except my stuff, my friends, and they step out and we'll have these kids come back and they're fundamentally changed. And then I've seen how that's kind of changed the shape of their life. A lot of these kids end up getting out on missions, kind of making some decisions that maybe potentially they wouldn't have made otherwise. And so you can see like this effect and this product and this outcome that's coming out of it. It's pretty consistent that I, haven't ran into too many people that haven't had that outcome. And, there's always somebody, but for the most part, it's delivering like a very good product or a very good outcome, which is so hard to do in anything, in any business, in any culture. There's what you say the culture is, and then there's what the culture is.
Sure.
And a lot of times those are two different things.
No, for sure. I think that it's been a very unique experience to build an organization that so fundamentally attracts the very best of the best.
Yeah.
I was speaking to we call them the X team. It's the trip leaders who were here last year who get invited back.
Yeah.
It's usually about 85% of our trip leaders that will invite back the next year based on the reviews that the builders give them. The kids, we call them builders. And I think we have 550 X-teamers this year.
Yeah.
And I was speaking to them on Sunday night, and there was just this moment where I looked out over, this pretty big room full of young adults.
Yep.
And I just thought, oh my gosh, this room is full of people who could literally be doing anything else for any amount of money. And yet they've chosen to spend a portion of their summer volunteering their time to do what they think is the most important thing that they could be doing on earth, which is helping these kids figure out their faith and figure out who they are. And over the years, people have kind of come to me and said, you have to pay them. They do so much. And I push back so hard on that because literally I could never pay them enough money to compensate them for what they're doing. I couldn't do it. If I gave them $1,000, $2,000 or something to do that, I think it would shrink what they're doing into being for $1,000 or $2,000. These kids spend 45, 60 hours of preparation before they even go on the trip, just getting to know their kids.
So every one of those 550 kids are volunteer.
volunteer.
That's so insane.
Yeah. And I mean, they're giving up jobs at like McKinsey.
That's like the coolest thing.
Yes. But I think that one of the reasons that they're so impressive is because they decided a long time ago what their lives are going to be about. And I'm saying a long time ago when they're 25 years old. They chose at 12, 14, 16 that they felt the most useful and the most purposeful when they were like
you've
getting
got to at this
close to
point
God.
have kids that have graduated and
Yeah.
were actually students.
Yeah.
And then are coming back and are
It's so
like,
fun.
do you have a lot of those now? Or
Totally.
like, what's the ratio?
About half.
Okay. Yeah.
Yeah.
I was going to say, because you've been going long enough now.
Yeah.
That it's got to be one of those things where you have somebody that goes out and had that experience and it impacted them and they would like to be a part of somebody else.
It's the coolest thing. So many of them will say that moment in Kenya or that moment in Argentina or that moment in Cambodia, that changed the direction of my life. That was the pivot point where I came home and just chased something different than I ever thought that I wanted.
That's so cool.
It is so fun. We have this thing every single morning that we do at the office. We call it Big Picture. I started it right from the beginning. First of all, we pray every morning. That was a little controversial at first because everybody said, you're building a company. HXP is a nonprofit.
Yep.
But from the beginning, I've run it like a business. If we have trips that don't perform well, we cut them. We're completely independent. So 15 to 25% of the income of the money that comes in for trips goes to keeping the lights on and running the business. But the rest of it goes to our programs. But I don't ever accept donations or anything because we want to be able to do this the way we want to do it. It
stands on its own feet.
Yeah, it has to.
Which is like so rare.
It's so, I believe this so deeply about you run nonprofits like a business.
When you step into that world and Chelsea's stepping into that world of more deliberately at this point.
Yeah.
And she's also at the same time she's doing her MBA.
Oh man.
So she's getting like these business tools.
Totally.
And she's looking at nonprofits through a business lens.
So smart.
And it's humbling for her.
Yeah.
Because she's like, there's these feel good opportunities that you want to just like donate to, but then you step back and you're like, the fundamentals don't work to be sustainable. And I want my dollars to be sustainable.
Absolutely.
And I want this thing to perpetually grow and live. And if you don't have the right fundamentals, we had a experience with this. Our oldest daughter was diagnosed with autism when we were really young, first daughter.
Sure.
And instantly you go to, what can I do?
Yeah.
What are the resources? And just kind of go all in. And there was a group that we worked with that was so exceptional. And they loved these kids so much. And, we were completely blessed that they existed.
Yeah, yeah.
But it was $50,000 to $60,000 a year.
Yeah.
And we were one of a tiny fraction of people that could afford those type of services. And so it was one of us, when we stepped back, it was like, hey, our money, we can donate to the same organization that was so helpful for us as a client, or we can donate to Utah Valley Autism Center that trains the trainer that can go perpetually. And ultimately, the decision was training the trainer and trying to get something that's sustainable, that grows.
I love that.
Where the other one, it's just it's so great, but it's kind of that starfish principle where you're like, it helps who it helps, but most people it can't help,
Totally. Well, and my philosophy has always been that if we run this thing like a business so that we're not limited or constrained by other people's resources, that we can continue to get bigger and bigger and bigger and grow.
You can scale.
Based on based on our own merits. And so we've always done that, but we also incorporated some of the best parts of a nonprofit, which is that we pray every single morning. We cannot do this without God. And so every morning we acknowledge that He's the one doing this and we're grateful. And then we have a mandatory 15-minute meeting. I always say it's the most important meeting of the day. So I don't care if you show up at the office at 6:30 or 7:30 or 8:45, but the meeting starts at 8:49 every morning. And it's called the Big Picture. And every single day, somebody from our team shares a story about HXP and how our work has impacted either them or one of their kids or one of the people that they know. So that way, the rest of the day, if you're spending your entire day coding or building algorithms or running models for finance or whatever, you remember in the back of your mind that what you're doing is putting kids on trips. What you're doing is creating experiences that can change lives. There's like a direct line of sight
to the purpose
from what you're doing to the purpose. And I think that's so fundamental to attracting really great talent. Is there's never a day, even, the data dogs, we have a data team at HXP, they call themselves the data dogs. But even those guys who are just so like, push your glasses up on your nose and, want to get into the spreadsheets, those guys cry every morning because for a second, they remember what the spreadsheets are for.
Yeah.
And I think that, frankly, I think you can do that even in a for-profit world if you're really clear about your core purpose and your mission. So big picture has been
it gets easier
for us
when like the mission is that big and that vibrant and that like powerful. I'm the biggest believer that business is a spiritual game.
Yeah.
And that serving people and like I get, by far the most spirituality in my life and have my entire life out of building businesses.
Yeah.
Like by far. I think so much of it comes to that dynamic of personal growth, of service, of value creation.
Yes.
And it kind of doesn't matter where you're creating value.
Yes.
If you have an interaction with somebody and you're putting more into the pot than you're taking out, there's magic that's created. But I think it's different when you're like all day, every day changing lives. And it's the volunteers, it's the team, and it's the kind of people that get to go experience it. And it attracts the people that want that.
Yeah.
Like one of the magic things about when you don't have much money to pay is people show up that want to be there.
For sure.
Because if they are doing it for the money, that's not
absolutely
where they end up.
But we never, I think this is important too, we never say to them, hey, thanks for doing this for free. So, just give us what you can. In fact,
you have very high standards.
Absolutely. I have a meeting with every single employee that starts at HXP, not trip leaders. My team does this with the trip leaders, but if you're going to work at HXP, I want to sit down with you first. We call it a vibe check. And I just say like, listen, if you're doing this for a paycheck, don't work here. Like go work somewhere else because I'm going to ask you for more than what I'm going to pay you for in money. And my guess is that you're showing up here because you're looking for that fulfillment. You're looking for a reason to give everything you've got.
Yeah.
And if you do that, this will be the best job you ever have.
Yeah.
But if you're looking for a paycheck, and don't worry about it if you are, because I've been there in my life before where I can't give everything to my job. But if that's where you are, you're going to hate it here.
Leadership is hard. Like leadership is really hard. Like I think
I have learned a lot about leadership over the years.
I'm sitting here and I'm like hearing I'm hearing this and I'm just even the percentages I'm hearing. And when you're proud that there's a 10% exception, right? You're proud that there's a lot of people who want to do this and we choose a very small percentage. But there's also 90% that would like to do it that don't get to do it.
Yeah.
And that's really hard.
Oh, it's so hard.
You know what I mean?
Like a remarkable people.
It's really hard. Like, and then the other aspect of it is just, like it's tough. You can't make everybody happy.
Yeah. No, for sure.
I'm like a people pleaser. Like I want everybody to be happy and I'm can do, and there's always like a way.
Right.
And some of it, there's just not. Like my career, my entire career was door-to-door sales.
Oh, yeah.
And I worked with young people that usually that's their first job, first kind of real job. And don't want to say it's volunteer, but it's 100% commission. So the person who gets attracted to that is betting on themselves.
Yeah.
They, believe in themselves. But the statistics, you would send out 100 and there's 70 that make it.
Oh, interesting.
30% go home.
Yeah.
And that 30%, it's hard.
Yeah.
Because it's either, choosing that this work's too hard or not being able to do the work. And both of those are challenging. Both of those are hard.
Sure.
It's somebody's kid.
Yeah.
It's somebody that you sat down with.
Totally.
But then you get to the other end of it, and the people who get through that process and they go from, I don't have any marketable skills to I can actually go create money out of thin air. I know how to sell. I know how to create revenue.
Yes.
and it changes their life.
Oh, and it's so fun to watch that happen.
It's so, and the swagger and the mojo and like the confidence that is created. And so you get the prize.
Right.
But there's also like the painful part, and statistically, it's coming every year.
For sure. Yeah, I know exactly what you're talking about. That's exactly what I'm talking about in those vibe checks when I say to them, don't work here if what you're looking for is a paycheck, because honestly, the entire group of people at HXP are asking themselves constantly, what more can I give? Like, what else can I do? How can I make this thing even better? We have a culture collaboration. It's 7 principles that we live and die. I hire and fire and everything in between by it. But the number one is great, not good. Like we're unapologetically trying to build a world-class organization. And so I used to work for Steve Jobs when I was younger, and he'd always talk about, A players attract A players.
Yeah.
And that's kind of what we do. And it's so fun because you show up at work, and I know Talon, who was one of my executives, I know he's been up since 4:00 in the morning at the gym working out. If I roll over in bed and just kind of stagger into the office, I feel like a schmuck, right? So I'm getting up too, because I don't want to show up and see Talon, and what's cool is that you take that philosophy of excellence and then you apply it to using that to change somebody's life. And you walk out of there feeling better about yourself and feeling like you made the difference, but you also just changed a kid's life.
We got this little group that it's the most eclectic group that's kind of ended up being good buddies. Like it's a group of guys. We got a sauna at our house, and over time, there's a group that kind of, out of a lot of people that have came over to do it, there's a group that ends up, it's kind of the group now.
That's so cool.
And we went out to Finland this last week to just go do a sauna tour.
Logan?
With Logan. So Logan is one of those guys. But it was really interesting. One of the kids served his mission in Finland. Mm-hmm. We're all like big time like sauna enthusiasts. And so we're like, yeah, let's just go out there. But what you're describing with iron sharpens iron.
Yeah.
This group, I think what is so magical about this group is every person in this group is striving in such a meaningful way in their business, with their family, with their faith, with their health. And so when they come to the group, there's a tremendous amount of contribution.
I love that.
And everybody's building everybody, and there's this thread happening. Yeah. And like today, I'm still on jet lag time. So I'm up at 3:30,
right.
And I'm like, well, let's get going. So you get up, you go do your morning, have a business meeting. And so a kid's coming over to do the sauna at 6 a.m.
Oh, wow.
Which normally that'd be like right when I'm waking up.
Yeah.
But I've been up for 2.5 hours. And he texted me and said, hey, I'm just finishing up at the gym. I'll be over. And I'm like, he was up at 4:30 a.m.
Cool. Yeah.
getting after CrossFit to come. And you're just around people that are doing inspiring things, doing hard things.
Yeah.
And it makes you want to be better.
For
you know
sure.
what I mean? Like when you're around people that are
excellent,
you want to be more excellent.
I actually think that's really one of the secret sauces to HXP is that we hire these 20-somethings that are just living. They're every one of my trip leaders are that guy that would have been up at 4:30 at CrossFit. But then you get 19 kids that go on their trip with them, and I'm not the leader. I'm too far away from them. I'm 50 years old. It's too hard for them to see themselves in me, but they can see themselves in that kid.
Person.
Yeah. And all of a sudden they're like, oh, hang on. I can be that. I can do that. And it wakes everything up inside you, right? Because you're thinking, wait, if choosing to walk with Jesus Christ produces that, I want to do that. If choosing to be excellent in school produces that. If choosing to finally overcome my addictions and get a hold on my life produces that, that's what I want.
That's what I want.
Yeah. And they're open and they're honest, and they sort of, we tell the kids, like, show up where you are. It doesn't matter. You don't have to be any sort of like supposed to be, We got kids that have never gone to church in their life. And we got kids that have never said a swear word, never said hell in their whole life, They're all together. in this common cause of like helping out other people, and they're best friends by
Which
the
I
end
think
of
it matters so much. I
It
mean,
matters
as you
so
get,
much.
because you, and we'll get into kind of like your career path pre this, but you went to Harvard, right?
Yeah.
And so that experience, out of any experience that I've ever had, that one was the most impactful for me. I did executive education.
Okay, yeah.
And so the cohort was older.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. That's
deeper
fantastic.
in their career and more international.
Oof, I bet the conversation was amazing.
It was just, and it still is today, where it's different people of different faiths, of different value sets.
Absolutely.
Very broad value sets.
Yeah.
But the most amazing people.
The most amazing people.
And the difference, that there is just some magic in like removing some of the layers of ignorance.
Totally.
And appreciating people for what they are, and just seeing them where they are, and also like being seen where you are. You know what I mean? Like growing up in like a predominantly LDS community, like everybody's kind of doing the same thing. And then you show up somewhere else and you're like the oddball.
Totally.
And that was a unique experience for me. I was like, whoa, like, you know.
you're known for, but the commonality, I think, especially at Harvard, is that there's this pursuit of excellence that binds you all together.
100%.
So, I mean, I was the only LDS girl in my entire class.
That's
right?
wild.
But I had to speak in sacrament meeting one day, and 28 of my classmates came to sacrament meeting.
Come on.
Yeah. And it's just like, because they were my best friends, you know, we're like together, and I'm watching them do incredible things. And I want to know more about their faith and their lives and what drives them, because I'm so impressed by these people, and they're looking at me, and it's the same thing. And I think in business, there's a commonality too that attracts you to people when you're like, man, let's go for it. What are we doing? You know? And I feel like that certainly has not always been my story. If you would have told me that I would go to Harvard when I was, you know, a freshman or sophomore in college, I would have thought you were up in the night.
Yes, we've talked about a lot of this stuff on this end. So maybe go back to the beginning. So I know your parents.
Yeah.
Dad passed away recently. Yeah. So I see your, you know, cute mom sitting up the front, you know, sitting up the front, and she'll always have like somebody from the ward popping up. Yeah. She's deaf.
Yeah.
And so she's like amazing at reading lips, and she's got kind of her different tools.
Yeah.
But like, she's alone.
Yeah.
And so you've got like, you know, the ward and different people jumping up there just saying she's not sitting alone.
Thank you. I love you so much for that. Makes
it's really
makes
special.
Me cry a little.
Yeah, but kind of knew them before. But talk to me about growing up and kind of what that journey was from, kind of going to college to Silicon Valley to, you know, HBS, to like talk about that path maybe.
Yeah. It's one of those things where I sort of look back and just think, my story is so directly attributable to choosing early on to listen to God instead of listening to myself. I feel like I had the luxury and the privilege of parents who were unequivocal in their faith. They just believed it. My dad was all kinds of challenging in lots of different ways. You know, he was like a fourth generation Italian immigrant, and all of the things that come with that in terms of a family that had addictions and had challenges and had problems. And when he was 12 years old, he found faith and decided at that moment that was how he was going to live his life. And so he chose God in that moment, but he actually also recognized that he had a long way to go. And so my father's story is one of constantly making mistakes and then returning and fixing them and getting better and fixing them and being better. And just the man he was when he passed away is someone that is one of the most admirable people I've ever met.
Because I never knew that. Like all I knew was like big-hearted, big giver.
Such a good man.
Yeah, like good man, super successment, like kind of excellent in business.
But after quite a few failures.
Really?
You know? Yeah. I mean, that didn't happen. And when I was younger, frankly, he was loud and frightening, you know, because that's how he was
His nature.
raised.
Yeah.
Yeah. And And he would talk about how he would be like that with us. And then he would go to church and think, how am I supposed to show up in front of Jesus if I'm acting this way to my kids or to my wife? And so he would change. He would like fundamentally return over and over to the point where I didn't have the same dad when I was older that I had when I was younger.
But how special is that?
It's incredible. And now,
like what you're talking about, like this journey, I mean, his journey is all of our journeys.
It is. And I think that it's so important to recognize that, because I would walk through fire for this man now.
Yeah.
Like he literally is the person I want to be.
But he was rough stone.
But he became that way. Yeah. And my mother's just an angel. She was born deaf. And so all of her life she couldn't hear. And so she was forced to sort of enter the world through a really different lens than the rest of us do. She grew up in Palo Alto in the 50s, where sign language was considered to be a cheat. And so she was forced to learn how to read lips. And there's a lot of controversy around that kind of idea now in the deaf community. But as a result of the way that she was growing up, she has no interaction with the deaf community because she doesn't know sign language. But she has a lot of interaction with the hearing world because she learned how to read lips.
I mean, your mom's a beautiful soul.
She's such an amazing
she's just
person.
a beautiful person.
Yeah.
Like she's
really is
she's
beautiful.
attractive.
It's really annoying to have a mom who's way more beautiful than you.
She is so beautiful, but she's
amazing.
beautiful. I think maybe it's more pronounced when you can't speak.
Yeah.
Because your essence and who you are shines through. And I've always felt that from her. I'm like, one, she's just beautiful.
Yeah.
And two, she has a beautiful spirit, you know,
and my mother's faith is just kind of like, it's like the anchor in my life. You know, it's the bass note. My mom just thinks if you pray for something, it'll happen.
Yeah.
She's always confused. When I remember my dad, when the Ukrainian wars broke out, he and Mike Nixon and a couple of other people went over to the Ukraine, and he came home after a while. And it was after a few months, my mom said to my dad one day, Anthony, why is this still happening? Like, she just thought he could fix anything.
And he kind of had.
She was so bugged with him that the war was still going on. But it was really because she had this fundamental faith, and she believes when she prays for things that they happen. And so often they do.
Yeah.
But even more than that, she lived her life because she couldn't hear by listening to, you know, what was inside of her, you know, the spirit or her feelings. She would walk into a room when we were teenagers, we'd be listening to some inappropriate music or something, and she'd be like, turn this off. And we'd be like, what are you talking about?
How are you capturing this?
She has a superpower like that.
Yeah.
But she's also, interestingly, has always been very independent. And so when my dad passed away a couple of years ago, a lot of people said to me, how is she going to do this? You know, he's been her support. And the truth is, she was his. Like, she's always been strong.
She was the one that kept him together.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And he would have been the first person to say that.
Yeah.
He worshipped the ground she walked on.
You could feel it.
Yeah.
You could always feel it.
And anyway, so I came out of that story with there's sort of an assumption that I would stay home and raise children, and that would be my life too.
Yeah, I mean, you have mom and dad, and
totally.
I think, even just you kind of see, you know what you know
for sure.
And if that was your life, because how many brothers and sisters?
4 sisters, so there's 5 girls.
So 5 girls. You guys all come up.
Yeah.
Go to BYU?
No, I went to Rick's College.
You went to Rick's?
Yep. I seriously, about maybe March or April of my senior year in college or in high school, I thought, I should probably figure out what I'm doing about college. And my dad was an entrepreneur. It was like college was just, it was assumed that we would go to college, but it was not
wasn't talked about.
No,
it wasn't
something that we pursued. So at that point, Rick's College would let pretty much anyone go. And so I grew up in Virginia and California, and I just decided to go to Idaho. And so I went out there, and I was 17. I had no idea who I was. My father always thought I was someone special, but I didn't believe it at the time. And so I went out there and, you know, did okay, but it was the first time in my life that I started making decisions for me.
Yeah.
So I decided, you know, if I was going to like walk away from God, then I was going to pay the consequences. It wasn't that I was worried someone else was going to be disappointed in me.
Yeah.
Or if I was going to do things that I felt proud of myself for, I also got the rewards from that. It wasn't because I was doing them for my parents or somebody else. And that really motivated me. And so I started to kind of pursue excellence a little bit more than I had originally thought I wanted to. I still had a lot of growing to do. When I ended up going on a mission, I got and came home and got engaged to this great boy who waited for me. I thought for sure we were going to get married, and we got closer and closer to the wedding. And I just thought we both felt like this just isn't right.
It just wasn't jiving.
Yeah. And he was such a good guy, but it just wasn't the right thing.
And this is like right off the mish.
Totally.
It was like early.
Yeah. So 4 weeks before the wedding, we called it off, and I got a call from my friend in California and said, come out here. This thing called the internet came out while you were gone.
You were how old?
I was, let's see, I went on my mission when I was 21, so I was probably 23 or 24.
Okay, so you're 23, you know this guy, and he waited for you.
Yeah.
So you knew him before.
Yeah.
Come back. Obviously, like, you think it's right.
Yeah.
And then you get closer to the end, and it's just not.
It just wasn't.
But that would have been a way different life. Like, I think that's the one, when I hear your story, because you got married for the first time when you were 50.
Just 6 months ago.
6 months ago.
Yeah.
And I got married when I was 22.
Yeah.
Chelsea's barely 20.
Wow. You guys both lucked out.
So lucky.
Yeah.
But my life was so much different.
Sure.
I don't want to say there wasn't independence.
Yeah.
But at a very, very early age, it was like, you need to like step up. Like, it's not just about you anymore. And so, and it put me on a track that was very different. And I think ultimately, you know, really great. It's been our journey, but I started early. Like like I see my buddies that, you know, didn't have that same forcing function.
Totally.
Of like, you don't have any other option except to get productive and get resourceful right now.
Yes. And
ultimately it was like that burning of the boats that I think, you know, set me on a different track. Yes. And so it's fascinating to hear on yours, not going down that road.
Yeah.
Set you on a course for a completely different road.
Totally. And it would be so great if I could tell the story like, oh, he turned out to be this terrible, horrible person. He didn't. He's
amazing guy.
He's a wonderful person. Yeah. It wasn't my customized curriculum. Yeah. It wasn't the right thing for my life.
Yep.
And I think over the years, especially as I got older and realized that I might not have children of my own.
Yeah.
I think it would have been really easy to look back and think about that moment as a mistake or as a, you know, deviation. But I never, not once,
you never doubted
done that. No. It's been very clear to me throughout my life.
That's kind of a gift.
The next steps are, I believe it's such a gift.
Like, to be able to carry that with you is like, it's got to be a gift to just be able to know,
totally.
I know I was right.
Yeah.
I know it was right.
But I also believe it's because I really try to like listen to what the right thing is. And so I've started to make decisions pretty early on about what's the next step for me based on just what feels right or wrong to me. Anyway, So
go out to Palo Alto.
Yeah, I was actually Sacramento.
Were you done with school? Had you graduated?
No. Remember that was back in the day when everybody dropped out of college to go do startups. So I wasn't finished. I had, I don't know, 3 classes or something.
So you went out there. Which company did you go out?
So it was a little startup called Power School.
Okay.
Are you familiar with it?
No.
Yeah. So started by a guy named Greg Porter and John Stone.
Okay.
It was student information software. So it's what everybody uses now to check their kids' grades.
Yeah.
And just, it was revolutionary at the time because it was literally, you know, we could see 10 minutes into third period whether a kid was at third period or not. Kids hated us. Parents loved us.
Yeah.
But it was kind of the first time in my career that I started feeling like I could do work that was impactful. Like, parental involvement is the number one indicator of student success.
Yeah.
And so we were giving parents a way to be part of their kids' education in a way that had never been possible before. And, you know, this idea of real time was so revolutionary. It was just really fun to be a part of it.
Which is so crazy. You think 25 years ago, that's not that long.
No, it's not that long at all.
But it is kind of a long time.
I have boxes, linen boxes full of handwritten letters. You think about that, that's our generation.
Yeah.
We are the only generation that had half of our life in that world and half of our life in the digital world, right?
I mean, I remember before I left on my mission, I didn't have a cell phone.
Yeah.
And
Same.
It was kind of this time machine of I left and I didn't have a cell phone. And only like my rich friends had cell phones.
Yes.
And I came back and every 12-year-old.
Yes.
And it was like this timestamp.
Absolutely.
Of like, oh, wow. The world changed a lot in 2 years.
While we were gone.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
That was exactly the same as me. I came home and I remember I got a phone and I would hide around the buildings at BYU. I didn't want people to think I was, being pretentious, talking to my cell phone.
Yeah.
But it was really
So you go out there, you're employee number 7.
Yeah.
How long did you stay with that company?
It was 2.5 years. It was literally the quintessential startup company, sitting on the floor because we hadn't bought furniture yet of apartments. And 2.5 years later, Steve Jobs walks into our office and Apple purchases our company. And they purchased it for $64 million in stock, which was pretty astronomical back then, but it was Apple stock. And so back then it was, I think, $14 a share or something like that. So I wish I could tell you that I really strategically planned to be in that position.
Yeah.
But in no way did I plan for that. That was just a miracle that happened in my life early on. So anyway, during the acquisition process, I got to know Steve. I got to know a bunch of other executives at Apple, and they invited me to come out to California to Cupertino to be, it's called executive relations. It's a technical title for like a spokesperson for the executive offices. Sounds way sexier and cooler than it really was. I was like, I did, PR basically, or customer service for if you got mad enough to get to Steve, then I was in charge of handling the situation.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
How rad.
It was.
Like, what a unique.
Oh my gosh. It was
what a unique
such a cool
experience.
Time. Yes.
So you're dealing with like pissed off people.
And it was right when Steve had come back to Apple. And so people still were like a little unsure about this Apple thing. And he was on fire. I mean, he was so convinced.
I mean, that Apple story is so inspiring to me.
It was such an incredible thing to
have a front row seat,
an eyewitness to it. I mean, you would go into meetings with that guy, and I'm just like a peon, like 25-year-old kid, and I would walk out of a meeting about, motherboards or something, and it would be like, oh, Apple is so lucky that I'm here. Because he would make every single person in the company feel like they were essential to what we were doing. And he was able to engage us around this common cause of like, we're about to change the world. We are about to change the world. And his enthusiasm was so contagious. And he was right, Like,
I mean, ultimately, like I've got like these habits.
Yeah.
And it's funny as I get older. I was having this conversation with Chelsea the other day, and I was like, I never realized this, and this about myself. And she just like literally starts laughing out loud.
Really?
It's like, you got like 25 deer heads in in the garage. I'm like, I had no idea I was like so obsessed with like hunting for the last and so I'll like have like these like obsessions, where I just kind of like get into these modes. But one of these, it's a really productive one, which is I'll make lists.
Yeah.
And I've got just a different, group of questions that'll inspire different answers to the question. But one of those lists is like, what am I grateful for?
Oh.
And Apple phones always, and Apple products always end up on that list. I'm like,
great.
They got my music.
Yes.
They have my notes. I talk to people. I text people. Like I listen to like my camera, my pictures. Like I'm like, this is kind of a miracle that this exists, and that all of us get like the insane value that all of us get on a daily basis.
And he knew it somehow,
which is so crazy.
He was convinced that we were gonna. He used to call it make a dent in the universe.
But you go back and you hear those early lectures, and then you look at like the product that they had.
Right.
It was trash.
Yeah, totally.
Compared to where it ended up.
Right,
and so
but what it is now. But we remember when those first iPods came out and it was like 1,000 songs and you were like, come on, who's ever going to be able to listen to 1,000 songs? You're moving from your little CD player.
That iPod changed my life. Like I remember buying the
little spin wheel,
a pile of these audiobooks and then downloading it onto the computer and uploading it to the iPod. And that was, what set kind of like my personal development.
No way.
Yeah. And I take it out and knock doors with it and stuff like that. And I'm like, anyway, so it's so fun. And even going back and like reading his biography, like he was a mercurial figure,
sure.
Controversial figure.
Absolutely.
Because he, and you see this with a lot of people where the extremes are so extreme.
Totally.
But they come with the other side of the extreme, and he left like a lot of dead bodies along the way, you know what I mean? And that was kind of your job, right?
Totally. But actually, I think it was a really important part of my journey to watch that because I actually feel like I did too. I think that was
the type of leader you were.
Yeah. I think when I was first an executive director of a nonprofit in India, I think I walked in there so convinced that everybody was going to like me and I wanted everybody to like me. And frankly, everybody did. And we got nothing done for like a year. I was just like the most popular girl on the planet because everybody was fine and it was fine and everything was fine. And so then I swung 100% the other way. And I just became a little bit more like the early days of my dad.
Bit of a tyrant.
Terrifying.
Yeah.
Yeah. I was angry all the time and mad. And we got a lot done because everybody was
scared of
miserable and scared. And I think over a lot of time, I feel like I've learned a lot of lessons about leadership in terms of being able to sort of hold people to high expectations, but to do it with a lot, like high love, a lot of love.
I think that's like tremendous EQ.
Oh man.
The leaders that can like find that space are a gift to the world.
Yeah.
And it's a very hard space to find.
But the dead bodies keep me awake at night.
Yeah.
I feel like I'd like to be able to go back to some of those early people that gave so much to HXP when we were first starting and working 90-hour weeks. And I was just driving.
Yeah.
And, I wish I could have been a little softer and done it a little better.
You see that in like college coaches where you'll see some of these coaches that get excellence at the highest level.
Yeah.
But also like...
But it's a terrible experience.
Yeah, there's a lot of damage done.
Totally.
But the people that can put up with that and deal with that level of intensity, they end up kind of seeing the top of the mountain as far as like what's possible, like what the human potential can give.
Yeah.
And I actually don't know what the right answer is because like I've been in high performance environments that are very intense.
Yeah.
And that's kind of got the best out of me, out of my life.
For sure.
And I've also been in, environments where nothing is expected.
Yeah.
And I don't really like that place.
Yeah.
So it's fascinating to like actually go through that process of seeing like what is the right balance and how do you go have tremendous excellence and very high standards and hold people accountable to those standards.
Totally.
I was with somebody just barely, and he's got to go fire somebody that's worked with him for a decade.
It's so hard.
And that's hard as a leader. Like
totally. It's my least favorite
your
thing
heart
to do,
bleeds because you don't want to do that.
Totally.
But he's in a spot where he will lose his company. He will lose the credibility of his company if he doesn't hold a standard.
Yeah.
And so
it's so hard.
It's lonely.
Totally.
Yeah.
But I also feel like I feel like my own journey has been interesting in that I think my team, I imagine they would probably back me up when I say this, that I don't think there's anybody that works for me anymore that doesn't feel like deeply loved by me.
That's amazing.
I know, but
has it always been the case?
No. No, I think there's people, like I said, I think
look at these parallels with your dad.
Early on,
both of you guys are like
people who felt deeply hated.
Rough stones that like
totally.
have to get like smoothed out.
It makes you wonder about Steve Jobs, like I wonder if he'd lived, if he also would have sort of slowly
come around.
Because I don't actually think you have to choose. I don't think you have to choose between like highest levels of performance and highest levels of love. I actually think that people perform at their peak when the leader sees them for who they really are and who they can be and treats them like that and holds them, expects them to be like that. And when they fail, pulls them right back up to where they are, but does it with love instead of fear. And that is not a lesson that I learned, the easy way. So
you worked in that role for how long?
Yeah. So I was with Apple a total of about 4 years.
It's a long time.
Yeah. I mean, I guess actually I'm including the startup too. Okay. So with Steve, it was about two
kind of two and two.
Yeah.
And then at that point, where do you go from there?
Well, it was actually interesting because we got to a point at Apple where it was really starting to be the thing. The iPod had rolled out. Everyone's kind of looking at us and getting excited about it. And Silicon Valley at that point was just insane. It was
buzzing.
Yeah, you would, you'd be on University Avenue down in Palo Alto and like vans would pull up and the back doors would open, just like throwing out t-shirts and swag. You just had to say .com and everybody was like throwing millions of dollars. Yeah, it was so buzzing. Fun. I had a little white convertible and I was just driving around hanging out with Steve Jobs. I mean, I just thought it was like the coolest. But I was also sort of experiencing this pull of feeling like I was on this train and it was going really fast in this one direction, but I hadn't forgotten that sense that I wanted to be a mother. I wanted to give. I wanted to nurture. And
you still had it calling to you.
Yeah, and it was pulling me in the other direction. And back then, some of the women that I was working with were different than the kind of women I wanted to be. They were a little bit too harsh and a little bit too mean.
You kind of have to make it. There is like a bit of masculinity.
Especially
being a female, you almost have to be
25
like
years ago.
more masculine to hang.
Totally.
Like, it's like,
and I do think like that's definitely evolved in the last 25 years. I think that some of the women that I know that are the most successul in their companies and their organizations are able to lead with a softness that actually is incredibly powerful.
Yeah.
But it's not. They don't have to become hard. And that's what I was seeing. And that's what I didn't want.
You didn't want to be hardened.
And when you sort of feel your heart pulling you in one direction and you're going in another direction, I think it can sometimes be a recipe for depression.
Yeah.
And so I was feeling that sense of like, I'm not where I want to be, but there wasn't an option for me to have children. I wasn't like meeting anybody. And so I just thought plan A, plan B, and that was it. And then in 2004, you remember on December 26th when the tsunami hit Southeastern Asia?
Oh, yeah.
Thousands and thousands of people were killed. I had a mentor, Dick Peary. He's a real estate magnate.
Yep.
Magnate? He's a huge real estate guy out in Palo Alto.
Yeah, the Peary family is like legendary. Like they're kind of known for just being excellent for decades and decades and decades. Yeah.
I don't know what he saw in me. I honestly can't figure it out, but he was my bishop in Palo Alto and I was in charge of a Christmas party one year. And after that, he said like, you're going to do great things and I'm going to make sure that you never forget that. And he never has.
What?
Yeah. For 25 years, a guy still calls me.
How cool is it to have people that believe in you?
Oh, I don't think you always know when the great miracles of your life are actually happening. For me, meeting Dick Peary, he was a great.
Well, I don't know this guy at all.
Oh, you got to meet him. He's the best person.
I know multiple people who've said that exact same thing.
He's a billionaire.
He touched me in the most meaningful way.
He's a billionaire, but like he loves people the same way that he does business.
Wow.
You know what I mean? And so he changes people's lives the same way he would walk into a business deal, which is like, this is going to be 50 million X times what we're starting with.
So special.
And that's what he did with me. And so he called me up and said, this tsunami just happened in India. My family's going to go over there and see what we can do to help the organizations in India. And why don't you go with them? And so I'm like, I didn't even know where India was on a map. I was not one of those people that felt like they were sort of called to India.
Yeah.
But I really loved Dick Peary, and I thought, if he thinks maybe I should go, then maybe I should go. And so 5 days later, I'm on an airplane, and I hit India on January 1st, 2005, in the aftermath of the tsunami, when everything is just, massive world support is just pouring into this place. And it was so eye-opening to watch what the world can do, what good people around the world can do. Yeah, with a focus, exactly. But interestingly, the tsunami didn't turn out to be the reason I was there. While I was on that trip, I met a woman named Becky Douglas. You should interview her on this. She would be fascinating to interview. She's like an amazing person. You know that movie, The Blind Side?
Oh, yeah.
She's that woman. Like
really?
This just little Southern, blonde, like marches around, doesn't understand the word no, just kind of like lives her life that way. But she had been in India for a few years there when I met her. And she and a couple of her friends from Georgia had sat around a kitchen table and started this little nonprofit in India to help people with leprosy. So I meet her and she's like, "You want to go out to a leprosy colony with me?" And I'm like, "That thing from the Bible, that disease?" And she's like, "There's actually 1 million people in India that are impacted."
1 million?
Yeah. And so I'm like, "Yeah, sure. I'd love to go to a leprosy colony." And so I get in the van, drive like 2 hours outside of the city with her. I get out of the van, and I've seen poverty before, so I wasn't expecting it to be anything really different than what I'd seen and worked with in my life before. But honestly, Casey, when I got out of the car, I couldn't even take in what I was seeing around me. Yeah, it was like human beings that had literally just been thrown away.
And India is so unique like that. When you take in the caste system, and you take a philosophy that like certain people are less than other people, and that this is like generally accepted.
And
it's just like
you're justified in treating them
it's
less than human.
And so that's another really unique part of that thing is like, you should be cast out because this is the group you're in and this is your lot on this go on the planet. You know what I mean? Like,
no, and in fact, you're in that position because, this idea of karma, something that you did in a previous life that you can't remember, but you're obviously being punished. And so it's my job to help punish you,
Yeah.
And so these people are literally isolated in ways you can't imagine. Like they're forced, regardless of their education level or what their career was. And it's got a lot better. So this was 25 years ago. They literally have to leave their homes and their families, and their only options for survival are to become beggars on the streets. So when I was there, you would see all over the place in the cities, people that had leprosy who were very disfigured, who were begging on the street corners. And when I got out of that van, all I could see around me was like, I think probably the closest version of hell or whatever hell is meant to be. I think that's what I saw. It's just people that were completely disfigured with open wounds and like human excrement and like flies, and just sitting there with they literally just been thrown away by society. And it was so pervasive and so horrifying to look at it that I had to sort of shut down a little bit. And I can remember this moment where I was turning to get back in the van because I just didn't.
It was too much.
It was too much. Every time I tell this story, it brings it back to me, and it's so fun to tell it. But I remember turning right, and as I did, I saw this woman. She was probably like 80 pounds. I mean, tiny, tiny. And she was leaning against a tree, sitting there, leaning against a tree. She didn't have any fingers left. So her hands kind of looked like this. And she just was looking at me. And I remember looking back at her. And this thing happened in that moment where I just saw a woman that was just like me, not a leprosy affected person who was completely disfigured. I just saw a person, like a human being. And I just thought, but for an accident of birth, she could be me and I could be her, and we could be in a completely different situation. And so I went and talked to her for a while, and she kind of told me her story. She'd been a beggar for the last 15 years. And at one point I reached out to touch her shoulder, just in a very natural gesture of just solidarity. Like, I'm so sorry this has happened to you, you know, and I touched her and her reaction was like visceral, you know. She had internalized this idea so much that she was untouchable, which is what they call leprosy affected people in India, that I think when I touched her, it did something to her. I mean, she was so shocked. And it was this weird thing that happened because it did something to me too in that moment. And I realized that like just by seeing someone, by recognizing a person for like who they really are, that you can change people's perception of themselves. You can do something different. And so all of a sudden I'm like, who cares about my white convertible? You know, like all of a sudden everything that I was doing in
just exploded
Silicon
your brain.
Valley. Yeah. I'm like, look what I just did.
Yeah.
And then all of a sudden Plan C emerged. You know, like there's a different option. I'm not a mother. I don't have children. I don't have to necessarily be like a hardcore, tough career woman. Here's an option where I can take everything I just learned from, you know, the greatest in the world about how to engage people around a common cause. And I can come here to India, and I think I know how to help people now to do this because I just watched him do it around an iPod, you know, and I can do it now around telling the story of the leprosy affected people. So I went home and quit my job and I moved to India and lived there for the next 7 years.
That's so long.
Yeah, isn't that crazy?
That is so long.
But we built this organization called Rising Star Outreach, and actually Becky Douglas became one of my great mentors in my life too. And I moved there. I lived there for 4 years and then I went back and forth for the next 3 years after that. But spent some of the happiest years in my life, you know, just driving a Jeep around the bush in India, like working in the leprosy colonies.
7 years.
It was joyful. Yeah. Some of the best people on earth.
That's insane though.
Yeah.
Like that's a big chunk of time.
It was a pretty crazy thing to do, especially for a girl who wanted to be a mother, you know, like I was like 29 years old, you know, it's like kind of hard to get a date in the leprosy colonies.
For sure.
You don't necessarily really want to do that if what you're trying to do is get married. But again, it was going back to that sort of feeling of like,
did you just
this
feel
is
like
the next
so
step.
much mission or purpose, like this is calling to me?
It was the next right step. It made no sense, but it was what I always tell kids now is like, you have to listen to smart people. You have to get all of the data and all the information and process that and do that. But when you're making decisions, the fundamental thing you have to do is get on your knees, or if you don't believe in God, listen in silence and listen to what your body is telling you, you know? And if you do believe in God, listen to what the Spirit is telling you. Like, you know what's the next step for you. And sometimes it's going to be the craziest thing that anybody could ever imagine. Sometimes it's going to be, hey, move to leprosy colonies in India.
So if you could summarize, and it's really hard, 7 years, long time.
Yeah.
What do you learn?
I learned that we learn who we are when we can see other people for who they are. I think that leprosy destroys everything from you. It takes away, obviously, you know, your physical health. But because of the stigma in India, it also takes away your self-esteem. You believe
dignity.
This happened to you because it's your fault.
Yeah.
Your social life is destroyed. You have nobody that wants to be around you, right? And you have no self-worth whatsoever. And so what I learned about life from leprosy is that when somebody has lost everything, if another person can come in there and see them as a human being and give them the sense that they actually have something to contribute to the world, it changes them and it changes the person who did it.
Yeah.
And HXP is an absolute outbirth of that experience that I had
it's gotta be.
I watched, so PBS ended up doing a documentary on our work a couple of years into this, and it won the Gracie Award that year for Best Documentary of the Year. And so it just played all over the country, and it was totally Field of Dreams. Like, if you build it, you know, people just started showing up. And at first I had no idea what to do with them. I mean, literally I had them like painting fences that I would make up just to give them jobs.
Yeah.
And since people aren't stupid, they were mad. You know, they'd come all the way to India to help, and we were making up work for them that wasn't impactful. And so slowly over the over the time that I was there, I started figuring out how to use volunteers in really powerful ways to move the needle on what we were trying to do. And obviously that's now translated into
it's
HXP,
like, it's fascinating you say that. We've done a lot of charity trips.
Oh, sure.
We used to do them with Vivint, and then we've kind of done them post Vivint just because we loved them so much.
Yeah.
And we worked with a bunch of different organizations.
Yeah.
The experiences are always life-changing. They're always so unique. They're always kind of one of my favorite experiences that I have for the year.
That's cool.
But the differences in meaningful work is very broad. Like there's been some of them where it's like, I'm doing stuff that is inconsequential.
Totally.
That we should probably pay a local person.
Right.
And they do it 10 times better.
Totally.
And so there's some of it that you say, I love the experience. I love the culture. I connected with the people, but the work wasn't very meaningful.
Right.
And there's other stuff where you walk away and being like, oh, wow, that was really impactful work. That was really like, and so there is like this delicate balance of, I do think there's value just in the social, cultural experience and seeing people.
I agree.
Outside of the work.
Totally.
I think just
the connections.
Just traveling to another part of the world changes you forever.
Yes.
But having meaningful work.
Yes.
Like magnifies everything. And working next to the people that you're serving and meeting. Like
working with them.
So cool.
Yeah. That was such an important lesson for me to learn in my life. I think that at HXP now, I'm, like I said, we're unapologetic that the purpose of our work is for the teenagers, our mission is to strengthen the roots of Covenant Israel. Yeah. Like we want them. Yeah. But we've also realized that if it's make work, if we're just making stuff up for them to do, they're not going to have that out.
The meaningful.
Yeah. It has to be real, sustainable.
And you got to work hard. Like,
impactful
I think
work.
That there's like a bit of like, you got to sweat. Like
totally. If they're doing it for a couple hours and then going and sightseeing the rest of the day,
it's not the same.
It doesn't work. We've got 2 weekends of sightseeing.
Yeah.
So 3 full days of sightseeing. And then the rest of the 17 days they're working. And it's pretty hard to explain when when you're in Africa and you see 50 kids sitting under a tree and you know that the next day when the monsoon hits, they're all going to have to go home because there's not enough classrooms for them to be in.
Yeah.
And you're spending your summer building a classroom that those 50 kids will then enter because they have about 50 kids in a classroom. I mean, it's not hard. The Gates Foundation said that girls' education in Africa is the most important thing we can do, right? There's a direct line of sight, again, from what those kids are doing that summer to what the impact is going to be on these kids in the long term and on Africa in the long term, right? You have to be able to do work that matters.
Yeah.
And that's the thing I think I learned in India more than anything is that when work matters, it changes the person who does it and it changes the person it does it for.
So you have like this crazy unique experience.
Yeah.
It's East Coast, Idaho. Then you go out to
California.
Palo Alto in like the .com boom.
Yeah.
And you just have a front row seat at the most unique window of that. And then you go spend 7 years in India.
Yeah.
And when did you know it was time to come home?
Dick called me and he said, "What the hell are you still doing there?" I'm like, "Okay, Bishop, I'm coming home."
He literally was just said, "It's time."
He did. He said that. It's a funny joke, but I had gotten to the point where Rising Star was doing really well. We built a whole campus. Our vision was that this is going to be the last generation of leprosy beggars that you see on the streets of India. I really believe in a visual vision when you're building a company. Like you have to actually be able to see what it is that you're trying to do.
Yeah.
I'm sure you've heard of that before where you could actually there's one in Palo Alto that's like a city of green rooftops. Instantly, you know exactly what they're doing. There's a robotics company that's like, by the end of the decade, 1 million people will have stood up out of their wheelchairs and taken their first steps. Like, I really believe that you have to have a visual vision.
You got to paint it that clear.
Yeah.
Yep.
And for us in India, this is the last generation of leprosy beggars. And I've just one miracle after another happened. We ended up partnering with the daughter of the president of India, which opened a million doors for us. I mean, that was such a key piece of us becoming a pretty significant organization in the fight against leprosy. But I feel like I felt like all along the way, we were just sort of doing it with twine and tape. We didn't know what we were doing. And I developed this desire to learn about what the best nonprofits in the world were doing and how people are actually making an impact on a global scale. And so it was just starting to feel like it was time. And again, I mean, I'd never really pursued academics as something that I cared about. But at that point, after all I saw in the world, I really wanted to go someplace that would attract the best in the world. And I felt like Harvard was the right place to do that. And so I wrote an application, and I think the first line of my essay was, "There's bugs crawling across my screen tonight as I write this." Because I was writing in the middle of a leprosy colony, at night. And I think that's how I ended up getting accepted to Harvard, not because I was some stellar student but because I had a really good story to tell, having spent all that time in India. And so I ended up going to the Kennedy School, and I structured it so that half of my classes were at the Kennedy School, where I could learn about social impact.
Did you do undergrad there?
No, I did grad school there.
Okay.
And then the other half of my classes was at the business school.
Yeah.
It's because I really
They
wanted
have a really cool program, right?
It's
like
phenomenal.
kind of a hybrid.
I was running across that bridge all day long, every day,
Yeah, had a good buddy that did law school out there.
Oh, yeah.
And but took a lot of business classes.
It was amazing. Yeah. And so at the end of it, I felt like I came out of it with a pretty clear understanding of how the best companies in the world are run. But then also, which was more important to me, a really good idea of how some of the people were making the greatest social impact in the world as well. And so I got a call at the end of my time at Harvard, and it was from a friend of mine from Silicon Valley, and she was working at Facebook at the time. And she said, I just got out of a conversation with Mark Zuckerberg, and he is really frustrated because he feels like the people who are working at this company more and more are losing touch with the mission of Facebook. And she was like, he wants to hire somebody to come in here and help people to reconnect with what he believes Facebook is all about. And she said, "Do you want to come and interview?" I'm like, yeah. So I went out to Palo Alto. I had 15 interviews. The last 2 interviews was like 4 hours with Sheryl Sandberg and 2 hours with Mark Zuckerberg.
What?
And they hired me to come in there and to come and help change the feeling of the internal community at Facebook and help them to reconnect with the mission. And so it was really interesting when I first got there. I just started interviewing everybody on campus. I would go up to, and there's this like random blonde girl that comes up to them like, "Why do you work here? Like, what's the reason that you're here?" And 9 times out of 10, their reaction or the response would be the culture. They would talk about how awesome the food
they liked
is.
it.
I mean, are you kidding me? You get like Bose headphones for free out of the vending machine. It's it's a Disneyland, I didn't know what to spend my money on. They were just like, everything was given to me. You literally can't find anything else that you could possibly want. But I think what I sort of figured out was that was actually the problem. Like, when people are complaining about because the valet's not parking their cars fast enough, it's like, hold up. Mark spent years like sleeping on an air mattress in Palo Alto because he fundamentally believes that if we can connect the entire world and they see each other, that the 2/3 of the world that don't have access to the most important critical functions would be changed because we see each other as human beings and not as numbers. And if you look at like Facebook's IPO documents, it literally starts out by saying Facebook was never meant to be a company. Mark's idea was very visionary at first. And I know that he's been categorically villainized in so many different ways, but my experience with this person was just good. I mean, like the man that I knew.
How cool is that to hear? Because it's like, one, I'm intrigued by Mark Zuckerberg, like just watching his journey.
Yeah.
There's some things that he does that I love.
Yeah.
Like, he just decides he's going to go do jujitsu.
Yeah, totally.
And like, not just does it, but like goes and competes. And
I actually see a lot of similarities between you two.
But he's showing up like anonymous because he has to.
Yeah.
and he's in like a tournament.
For sure.
You know, and then like I was watching him on like a, you know, on like a birthday party, and he just decides to go like full Benson Boone.
Yeah.
And I'm like, I think that's so rad. Like
Yeah.
you know, you're worth hundreds of billions of dollars.
Yeah.
You don't need to work, haven't needed to work for a long time.
Yeah.
But they're changing the world.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? They're at the front end of artificial intelligence, of the, you know,
right.
You know, going and creating.
Facebook is the new printing press. Right?
It's the kind of crazy. It's like
it was
but
social
between
media
VR and AI,
and now it's that. Yeah.
All these different channels, and you've got somebody that's kind of right at the heart of that. But you also get kind of the other extreme, which is like he's ruining the world.
Right.
You know, social media is like literally like destroying kids. Like you take even your business, like there's something that you do the very first day that these kids get out there, which is like you shut it all off.
We call it a digital detox.
Yeah. You go get away from it. And so there's, you know, there's these contrasts with it. So you went out and you worked with Mark for how long?
I want to be clear. Like I wasn't his best friend. Like I wasn't hanging out with him all day, every day. Like I got to know him, and then he kind of set me on my path. And I met with him a few more times after that, but it wasn't like.
But it was in a role that was senior enough at Facebook.
Absolutely.
You had access to the most senior people.
Yeah. And I mean, I got to work with all of the executives at Facebook to get to know that. It was interesting, actually. There was one vice president during this time who, even in the interview process, our backgrounds were pretty similar, and she was like instantly competitive with me. And so it was a challenge to me to work with her, because as I came up in business and in career, I found that like we were talking about before, the evolution of the women that I was finding as mentors was changing. And I was actually finding a lot more mentors. Actually, Sheryl Sandberg was one of those people who I felt like had really found a way to be a soft person and a loving person, to show up authentically as who she really is in kindness, but also like,
you got to be a freaking boss.
Totally. I mean, she had high expectations, and she expected of us. But she was really a wonderful person. But there was another woman that just was really difficult to work with, and she actually figures into my story too. As I tell you more about Facebook, she made it very competitive. So anytime my team would do something well, she would find a way to kind of push back on it or undermine it or whatever. And it was a challenge to work with that, but we did it anyway. And we started to do some really cool things. We became more and more successful as we would go into like the different teams at Facebook and light them up around what Facebook could do. And like the fundamental approach that we took was something that I actually realized when I was asking myself why Facebook mattered to me. And frankly, I don't care that much about Facebook, or I didn't at the time. But then I thought about the thing that's the most important to me, which is my faith. And I realized that I just spent 18 months in Italy and Malta knocking on people's doors, trying to help them understand what their lives could be if they involved Jesus in their lives. And I realized that in 2 weeks, Facebook could reach the same amount of people that I was able to reach. And suddenly Facebook matters to me in a way that it never did before, you know? And so that was the approach that we presented and that they really liked, was that what if we go to every single person at Facebook? And I remember having a conversation with Mark and saying, like, I don't think that story is going to impact everybody. I'm not sure that, you know, the LDS Church is going to be the motivation for every person here. But I do think everybody has that core thing that's them, right? That they care about. It's curing cancer, or it's the LGBT community, or it's the getting people off the streets, or it's something that touches every single person.
Yeah, I think that's probably the controversial thing about Facebook also.
It is.
It's a magnifier.
Yeah.
And regardless of what you're putting on there, it's going to magnify the message.
Right.
You know what I mean? And so you take whatever message you're bringing, you know, and I think that's ultimately like where a lot of the controversy comes in when politics and governments that try to manipulate it. And so it's tricky.
Absolutely.
Yeah, it's
and
tricky.
What we were trying to do was to say, look, there's literally nothing else in the world that can move the needle on these kinds of things as much as what Facebook was at that point. LinkedIn was sort of the closest thing, and it didn't come close to what Facebook could do.
Way different.
At that time. So we started going around to every team and asking, like, what's the thing that you care about? And let's see if we can use this platform to move the needle on it. Like, how much money can you raise? How much investment can you get? How much, advocacy can you create by doing this thing with this platform? And suddenly you just started to see people, like, they would post on Facebook, like, Amy Antonelli's team came in. I'm like so lit up. I'm so excited to do this, because we would connect people to their fundamental cause, and we would use Facebook as a way to do it. And it was really fun. We were like, it really felt like I was at the very height of my career. And
kind of, like when you say the height of your career, it's kind of the culmination of like,
well, it felt like
I'm doing this stuff as a little kid, and I'm probably like over my skis.
Yes, totally.
And then you go have like this like completely different experience with nonprofit.
Right. Well, and also, I mean, I was doing it kind of as a initiative for Mark Zuckerberg, right? So I can call Simon Sinek and get him on the phone.
You can flex.
I can call Greg McHugh, whoever it is that I want to talk to, and they just are like, "Yeah, I'll come." And so I've got lots of cool people on my cell phone.
It's amazing.
And even from the church perspective, I got asked to give this big devotional at BYU Idaho, and I had to get clearance from the first presidency. It was a really big deal, and I was coming in as like high level executive at Facebook, and really was starting to feel like everything that I'd done in my life so far
was leading up to it,
was for that, And at Harvard, I'm a little bit OCD. I know I'm a little bit OCD, actually, frankly, think that I have a little bit of that. And part of how that manifests is that I would record all of my classes at Harvard, and then I would go back and listen to them and take notes again.
That's amazing.
It is how I internalized
That's hardcore.
It was just too hard for me to just like pick it up.
Yeah.
Some of my classmates were way more brilliant than me. They could just like listen to it and go on, but I have to like write it all down.
Yeah.
And so actually when I started at Facebook, I started doing that in some meetings. I would record it and then go back and like make sure I got the salient notes. And it was like a helpful thing to me because I would get more and more, like I would be really clear about what we were doing next. And so anyway, we're 6 months, 8 months later, we're into this thing and it's like going well. I had a huge meeting with Mark Zuckerberg, Chris Cox, Sheryl Sandberg, the whole executive team at Facebook. We go in, we present, and it was honestly one of the best presentations I'd ever given.
It was
just like so fun. Yeah. And you just like feel it when you're like, okay, that was good. I've given some bad presentations in my life. This was the opposite. I got an email from Sheryl Sandberg that night that just talked about how excited she was and how awesome it was. And the next day, the vice president, who didn't like me at all, her admin asked me a question about the meeting. And I said, I don't remember, but I recorded it. And so we can go back and look at it and get it. 3 hours later, they walked me out the door. I was fired. It turns out in California, it's completely against the law to record people without telling them. But also, it was Mark Zuckerberg. Like, it was the dumbest thing I've ever done in my whole career. Like, I could have sold that recording to the New York Times. Like, if you think about how stupid that was, it was like, this is a famous person. I had forgotten, like, that it was him. This is a famous person who probably doesn't want his meetings recorded when he's talking. It was a really big deal. It was a total breach. But I will also say it was like the greatest shock of my life because I felt like I was coming from like really the highest pinnacle of where I was at Facebook to the very, like, I sat in my car afterwards thinking.
Were you just crushed?
I was like so shook. I think the first thing I lost $1 million that day in stock. And I think that the first thing I thought was, I can't believe I just got fired. Like this was just not, it was so out of the, I was doing well. You
were crushing it.
Yeah. And honestly, the very second thing I thought was, what am I supposed to say to these students? because I was speaking like the very next week at BYU Idaho. And I was supposed to go up there as like this high-powered executive at Facebook. And I'm like, I literally just been fired. And so, and it was like a week before my 40th birthday. And so I went, first of all, to Dick's house and like cried and cried for a few hours. And he reminded me of who I am and who he still saw me as.
Yeah.
And then I went to the beach for like 2 days and hid under a blanket. And then I started writing this talk. And I probably wrote 40 versions of this talk in every different way that like skirted around what had just happened. You know, I was just trying to like give some good pointers of life or whatever, and not really tell the people that this had happened, but everything just felt so fake and so hollow.
You just had to tell the story.
Yeah. So the night before the speech, my best friend flew out from Colorado. She sat in the wings of the stage, and I wrote the speech at 2:00 in the morning. And Tiffany sat in the stage, and I put a Bose headphone on it was like a TED Talk kind of thing. So I had pitch black. I couldn't read anything. So I had a Bose headphone in my ear. I covered it with my hair, and then I had the microphone on my other hand. And Tiffany read the speech in my ear as I gave it to the audience. So if you go back and look at it, Tiffany's cadence is really kind of slow and methodical. I talk really fast, but it sounds like I'm just so wise and thoughtful in the speech. But honestly, what I said, I feel like gave me my life back in that moment, because I walked out on the stage and
it gave you purpose.
Yeah, well, in front of thousands of students, I said, imagine that you woke up on the day before your 40th birthday with no kids and no husband, having just been fired from a great job at Facebook, and having to speak to the students at BYU Idaho about how to find the purpose of life. And I just stopped talking after I said that. And you could hear the audience kind of like whispering and like, what did she just say? And I feel like it was before it was kind of cool. It was before Brene Brown, you know, it was before it was cool to be vulnerable. And so
I think it's always been cool. I think she just captured it. But like anytime when you experience it, you
totally
know, like
it was literally the scariest thing I've ever done in my life, because I thought there was like a good chance that I was throwing away every prospect that I ever had. But I also thought, you know what? This was not something that I did that was like malicious, or I literally told them about it. That's how I got fired, is that I told them about it. So I'm not going to walk around with this great shame for the rest of my life that I had done something wrong, which is what I sort of felt when it first happened. And now, I mean, it's easy to look back and be like, oh yeah, she told, but then the next thing that I said was really kind of the core of like who I am as a person, I think, because I said, the truth is, I don't know what happens next, but I do know this, that finding our purpose is never a one-time event. Like, we do it over and over and over in our lives as we become the men and women that we were created to become. And at that point, Casey, I had no idea that what was next for me was HXP, which at this point, I would have paid way more than $1 million to have been able to do what I've done the last 10 years. And it actually horrifies me to think sometimes that I might have spent my life at Facebook, you know, doing what I was doing back then, instead of what I've done the last 10 years, watching 40,000 kids change their lives because they decided that they wanted to serve people.
Yeah.
And I just think it just kind of goes back to this, I think what's probably like the greatest mantra of my life, which is that when you choose to do life with God, He makes it so much more amazing than you could ever imagine, even on the days that feel horrible, even on the days that feel like you just got fired by Mark Zuckerberg. Those days are miracles. You just don't know it yet.
I've got so many like thoughts going through my head.
It's a pretty good story.
well, whenever I hear it, I always go back and reflect to like personal experiences.
Yeah.
And I can think of 2, 3 times where I can see God just stopped it.
Yes.
And it had to be that extreme for me to stop it.
Yep.
And it feels like that was one of those that was like, it had to be that extreme.
Yeah.
To get you off of that path, because that coming out of that meeting probably not less opportunities coming your way.
Oh, no. I thought I was like going to be the next CEO.
It's more opportunities and more expansion and more. And
it is. And I think that.
But then you look back a decade later.
Yes.
And you're like,
totally.
Married to a person that I love. Building
greatest
an organization
job in the world.
that I'm like completely proud of and passionate about. And you're like, what happens if I would have got that job? What happens if I would have been like,
I know, and that's
way different track?
That's what I tell kids, like all the kids that work for me, that I call them kids if they're in their 20s, when they get so scared to make a decision, that's what I tell them. I'm like, don't worry about it. Do the thing that you think is the right thing to do.
Yeah.
And trust in a God who will actually course correct in pretty major ways
in real time
if it's the wrong thing or if it's going to impact your life in a way that's detrimental. Follow your intuition, follow your gut, follow the spirit, and do what you think is the right thing to do. And just trust that if it's not the right thing, you're not going to make the roster, or you're going to get fired by Mark Zuckerberg, but it's going to end up really good in the long run.
Yeah, we could literally go on forever. I kept you probably way too long.
No, I'm sorry.
But I do
so
I do
nice
want
to
I do want to kind of capture. We didn't talk about finding love. We didn't talk about some of these things that I actually think would be fun to kind of come back another time and catch up on.
Oh, absolutely.
But I do actually.
That's a really good story.
But I do actually want to kind of finish up with the faith question because, everybody, I think it's important to everybody, but it feels like for you personally, it's been like central to this entire journey. And like, you've really like, we don't know each other very well. And so a lot of the stuff that I'm hearing, it's new. But I am seeing these patterns of you trusting.
Yeah.
And just going with it, trusting, and literally going all over the world.
Yeah.
Trusting. And a very unconventional path that you've just followed. You've just trusted it. And so talk to me about how that reconciles with faith and kind of how you think about faith and where it fits in your life.
It's funny. I just got married for the first time at 50 to literally like the greatest man in the world. And if you would have asked me at any point during my life what my greatest hope and my greatest dream was, I would have told you that it was to get married, to find a partner and to have a family, to have children. And I'm experiencing that in abundance right now. My husband, and he came with 4 children, and it actually shocks me. I don't know where the love came from. Somebody said it's like grief, but in reverse. It just came out of nowhere.
Just shows
and
up.
It's so powerful. I would walk through walls for these kids, and I love them with everything that I have, but I want to testify of this, and I believe this with everything that I am, that had that great miracle not happened in my life, I still, every day for the rest of my life, would have testified of a God who loves me and who is making me into a queen, a woman that he created me to become. And that just because my life was missing something that I wanted so badly, I refused to sit in the missingness of it. I refused to focus on the lack. I chose a long time ago that my life was going to be about Jesus Christ, that I was going to be about bringing people to him, and that my joy came from helping people to feel that desire to come to him too. And so whether or not I had this great miracle that I prayed for every day of my life, I still felt joy in my life. There was loneliness for sure. That was something that I never want to lessen. But the joy was there every day because my life, my purpose was about him, and my focus was on him. And I feel like that's the promise of every follower of Jesus Christ, is that if you trust me, if you focus on me, if you choose to do life with me, I will make your life so much more amazing than you can ever imagine. And I leaned into that promise at a really young age, and I've proved it every day of my life.
No, it's so special. Your story is so special. It's so inspiring. It's so fun for me to listen to it.
Thank you. It's been a great life so far.
And like, we're fired up. We're fired up to have our kids go be a part of what you've built.
I'm so excited to have them.
So excited. I think Ava, for the first time, I don't know if she's doing it this year, next year. She does competitive cheer.
Oh, yeah.
And it,
I remember.
Keeps her out of.
Yeah.
But I think she's doing it this year for the first time.
I think she is too. I feel like I had a conversation with Chelsea about that.
And we've just seen so many people that have done it, and we're so excited for the outcome.
Well, I hope she has an amazing experience. Yeah. I really do think if she gives everything that she's got to it, where she's like, I can barely walk to get on the plane coming home.
What do you want more for your kids? I mean, it's a gift to parents. I'm like, to have my kid not have their phone.
Yeah.
And to go serve and to get social and dive deep. I'm like, that is a gift.
Jesus be part
that
of
is
it.
A gift to a parent.
Yeah.
Like it's what I would aspire for my kids to go do.
Wow.
And it's so cool that you built a platform and a program and a culture that can do that for so many kids. Because I think it's life-changing. I don't think that you fully, I'm sure you think about it all the time, but I don't think you fully grasp kind of that butterfly effect or that ripple effect that's going to happen over the next decades from doing this the right way.
We talk about it. We talk about it a lot, that this is generational change.
It's generational change.
Yeah, because if a kid goes on a trip and all of a sudden, the 17 years of teachings that their parents have been giving them every single day, if all of a sudden it clicks because they feel it, the reality of it, this is real. This is what I feel.
It's not words.
No, this is who I am and who I can become. That changes their decisions, and then that changes their children's decisions. It's generational what we're doing. We don't take it lightly, but I'll keep an eye out for Ava, and
can't wait.
I pray that she has an incredible experience.
Yeah, so fun. Thanks for coming.
Gosh, such an honor. I love what you do.
This podcast is brought to you by Sandlot Partners.